Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy. And again, we are bringing on the best, the brightest, people who are really, really succeeding and at different stages in their entrepreneurial journey and making those transitions. Today we have on Donnie Boivin. And I know I was going to screw up his name.
Yeah, you got it right.
No, we're good. But he literally gets paid for people. The people pay him so that they can get out of their own way. And I think for me, in my experience, that's one of the biggest issues in any business. I was talking with some business partners this morning, actually just a few minutes ago. He's like, man, I need to do better at updating my stuff every day. And I was like, no, you don't. You need to find somebody to do that for you. You don't need,
Absolutely.
You do not need to do that. And it's something that I've struggled with, honestly, is relinquishing control, because I'm a little bit of a control freak, as most entrepreneurs are. They want to be in the mess and doing it, but that's not really what their 10% of what makes the most money and what their skills are. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce kind of where you came from, maybe a little bit of stories and how you got into the current business and how you got this reputation of helping people get out of their own way.
Absolutely. Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. I love doing these, especially these type of conversations where I get a chance to tell my story a little bit. So, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, got out of that and went straight into straight commission sales. And I spent 20 years there's a plane going over. Sorry about that. America's flying by. I did 20 years straight commission sales and found a lot of success in that. I became one of the top sales trainers in the world with an organization called Sandler Training, and had a lot of fun, working with companies, teaching their salespeople how to, learn how to actually sell. And during that sales training years, I picked up partner in my firm that I worked with and was really going through the process of buying them out. And we were on about a 5-year, 7-figure buyout, conversation. And I really thought that was kind of my destiny, right? That my journey, that's where I was meant to be. And me and my business partner went out to dinner. And as we sat down for dinner, we're having great conversations about what the future holds and all the things. And, as we're talking, I'm seeing myself running this whole company. And I'm really excited about, taking on this adventure. And as we're having a couple of cocktails, he looks at me and he goes, Donnie, I got to tell you, I'm really grateful that you're my retirement plan. And I had to pause because it took a second for me to wrap my head around what the hell he just said. And he realized the words that came out of his mouth. And to his defense, I still love the guy to death. We still have dinner together and drinks and whatnot. What he was trying to do is say how grateful and thankful he was for everything that I'd done for him. I had doubled his company a couple of times and, we'd done some amazing things. And he was trying to pay me a compliment. But what he did is awoken the beast inside me, because it was in that particular moment that I realized that I'd spent 40 years making everybody else rich, 40 years living somebody else's dream. And 15 days later from that conversation, I walked away from everything. I walked away from that partnership, that company, that whole 9 yards. The stupid thing I did that day was also the same day I told my wife I was going to do this. She had no idea I was walking away from all this. And at this point, dude, we had bought our dream farm that we still live on. I'd built a secondary house on the property for my mother-in-law. We were buying all the animals. We're doing some remodeling. We're doing a little bit of everything. And here I'm, walking away from the security of a fantastic paying job, great carrier, benefits, everything, and going out on my own. So I remember that drive home going, driving my house going, what the heck did you just do? I can't believe you literally just walked away from everything. So, but after I got over that initial shock and fear, I really had this thought in my head that I'm a damn good sales guy. Everybody in my hometown knows who I am. I'm going to open this business and this thing's just going to take off and I'm going to sail off to the sunset and be a retired millionaire in less than 5 years. And yeah, none of that happened. So I got the business up and running, and I realized quickly that I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I didn't really have a business model. I was trying to be like this coach, maybe consultant, I didn't know, speaker thing. And I just said yes a lot to people when they, wanted to do something. And so at one point I found myself doing graphic design work because I needed cash. And about 6 months into the business, I had one of the toughest conversations that I've ever had with my wife when I walked up to her and I said, babe, we're about to lose it all. I burned through my nest egg trying every course, every book, every coach, every consultant. I mean, I was trying everything to figure out how to run a business. And my wife, being the awesome gal she is, said very sweet, loving words to me, and I'll clean it up the version for your show. But she told me to get off my butt and go blank and sell something. And so I did. I started scrambling and fighting and started, selling and figuring things out. And I gave a speech at a really big event, and I wasn't the keynote at the event. I was one of the breakout speeches. But after the speech was done, a guy walks up to me and he says, Donnie, I love your story. I love everything you've talked about, your sales journey and the things you've been to. Would you come tell your show on my podcast? And I said, what the hell's a podcast? And he laughed and explained to me that a podcast, was two people talking on a mic and, sharing their stories. And that was April of 2017. No, excuse me, April of 2018, excuse me, that conversation happened. And I went on a show. It aired. After I got off the air, or after it aired, one of his listeners reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really like to hire you for some sales training. And I went, wait, I can go on podcast and find clients? Hold my beer and watch this. So in the next 30 days, dude, I reached out to every podcast I could find, and I was on 67 shows in 30 days. I just went bananas with it. And it was around the 50th episode that I was on that I was being interviewed that I happened to go on a really, really, really bad show. I mean, it was horrible. And I love telling the story on stage because everybody laughs. But literally, the guy hands me a note with 20 questions on it. He emailed it to me. And he starts off and he goes, okay, question 1. And I answer question 1. He then goes question 2. And I answer question 2. He goes question 3. And I went, oh, crap. And I answered question 3. He goes question 4. And me being me, I asked him, okay, tell me your story. What are you into? What do you do? And he goes, question 5. No dialogue, no back and forth. It was insane. And I realized really quickly, if this guy can have any success whatsoever in podcasting, I'm getting in the game. So I launched my show, Success Champions, in May of 2018. In 3 months, it hit top 200 in the business category, 5 months. The highest it ever hit on the charts was 59. And I got the screenshot sitting next to Tim Ferriss, which I was really geeking out over. And, that led me to some fun things. I got to speak in Ireland on podcasting and do some other really, really cool things. But ultimately, podcasting saved my business because it taught me business systems and processes. I was interviewing some of the biggest names in the world, so I couldn't look like a rookie when I was bringing on these guests. So I had to build all these automations and process. And so in doing that, I'd realized that the reason my company was so bad is because I was running it like a job and not a business. I was doing everything. I was doing all the heavy lifting, and I hadn't shifted my mindset over to that of a business owner. But once I had that kind of epiphany in the business, things started taking off. And we launched a Facebook group that right now is 800 small business owners with 90% engagement in it that are rocking and rolling. I've produced a cookbook, a second podcast that's a top 200 in self-help. We've launched a magazine under the Success Champions brand, and it's rocking and rolling. And so now, I really give back to small business owners, and I don't tell them I'm going to make them $1 million business or anything. I always tell everybody, I'll get you to where I am. I will sit down, I'll put you through masterminds and courses and things that we do, and I'll just get you as far as I've got. I can't get you any further than I am because I haven't been there yet. And, I walk through people like, what kind of conversation should you have with a coach before you hire them? And my number one thing that I always tell people is, ask them who their coach is. Ask them who they're working with. What they're going to find is most coaches don't have coaches. I mean, there's a lot of scam artists out there. As they go through the process. So, but now, I mean, we're living a fun life. I'm a little over 2 years into this business, multiple six figures, and having a blast. Still learning a lot. I've got a full team that works underneath me, and we're just running and gunning, and seeing how quickly we can break something to learn from it. So 10,000 foot, brother. That's the gist of everything.
And I just am blown away, honestly, as I'm sure you are blown away of your success as well. It's interesting. I found in my own life, not to say that the growth wasn't intentional or focused on, but it's like you put in all this work, and a lot of people say, oh, well, you've created this business out of 2 years. All of the failure before has counted as all the years it's taken to build what he's built, right? And it's not a well, you were able to just day one build all that. And sometimes people get lucky, and I say lucky that they have the right coach. I think it takes action to have the right coach. So I don't really know how much luck there is, but because they have the right coach, they can circumvent a lot of that pain and a lot of that the downsides that you gain through that growth. But everybody is going to be a little bit different, and everybody needs to learn lessons. As much as you read a lesson in the book, it's not your lesson until it's your lesson.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I love that you said it that way, because I actually haven't heard it put quite that way. But I remember talking with a mentor of mine not too long ago, and I looked at him and I said, the stuff I read in the book finally makes sense. It's because as you could read it, it's all theory. It's all somebody else's words until you go through it. And like most people, I'm the person that you say the stove is hot, the stove is hot, the stove is hot, and I'm still going to touch the damn thing to see if it's hot, And that was it for me. And I think kind of my craziest epiphany through all of this along that lines is as I was going on my journey, I thought I was a hard worker. I thought I put in hours. I was always the number 1, 2 sales guy in every company I am. I've always kind of been that achiever type guy. But when I launched and became a business owner, I realized quickly how lazy I was over my 20-year career being an employee, because I've never worked so hard in my life. It's wild how mentally I've pushed and changed myself along this way. To go back to, a lot of the things I heard and read in the books now make sense because I've gotten punched in the face by life. And as I love telling people, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's crazy that maybe doesn't always get focused on is this is coming from somebody who was in the Marines for 4 years. Like, it's not that he doesn't know how to push his mental toughness. It's not that he doesn't know how to work his butt off and get drilled and push his body, his mental, everything to its breaking point, right? He's already done that. And then he spent 20 years. It's so easy for us as humans to revert back to, we can go have this really tough stint, but then revert back to our childhood rearing and how we were raised, rather than continuing on that same vigor, that same intensity to build our own future. And as he mentioned, I love that penny drop. Like that, I call it the penny drop, right? But like when you realize, man, I've been building somebody else's life. I've been building. Ask yourself that if you're listening to this, whose retirement plan am I? Are you somebody else's retirement plan right now? And if so, is that the way you want it? If that's the way you want it, look, I know that not everybody's an entrepreneur and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, because it is a lot of risk. It does take being willing to go to, hey, honey, we're out of money. We're broke. Right. Okay? It takes being willing to have that conversation and being willing to do the work necessary to get out of that conversation to be a successful entrepreneur. I understand that, but really consider whose retirement plan are you, and what are you building for you?
Yeah, I love that you pulled those phrases out. It's one of the favorite things I love telling people is I had 20 years in sales. And what I learned in sales training, teaching other salespeople, is that a lot of people come up to me, I've got 10 years in sales, 20 years in sales, and 30 years in sales. What I found, and I found this a lot in my own life, is people didn't really have 10, 20 years in sales. They had year one repeated 10 or 20 times. They never evolved. They never leveled up. And I think, that was a lot of my journey as I went through it, is I wasn't evolving into a new person myself. I mean, I knew how to sell. So every conversation was just a different variation of the same conversation. Every deal that got done with a different variation of a deal that got done. I never found a second gear. And it wasn't until I started running my own business, and there's no excuses left. I mean, when you're running your business, dude, there's no one left to blame. There's no backup plan. You can't say because Sally didn't do her job, you can't do yours, or the economy sucks. There's get it done or shut up shop. I mean, that's it. And so when it's all on you, and your back is stacked against it, and you've got to step forward, that's when you start evolving. That's when you start leveling up, because you're going to find that mental game that you didn't know you had. And that's 100% what happened to me. I mean, life of an entrepreneur. One day you're like, yes, this is amazing. I love it. I'm so glad I did it. The next day you're like, oh my God, I got to go get a job, and try and figure this out. It's incredible to realize how much you learn about yourself on this journey. And it goes back to, the books make sense.
Yeah, totally. So, and to kind of bleed into this next thing that I just love and want to pull out here and have you speak about. But for me, so one of the I have a lot of influential authors and people that I've listened to, but one thing that sticks out that really shifted my mind, I don't really talk about it that often, so I'm glad that we're having this conversation because it just came back to my mind. But the idea of even if you're an employee, quote unquote, working for somebody else, Brian Tracy, I don't remember which book it's in, but he says
one of his 500.
Yeah, I mean, he has so many books, but one of the things that he says in one of these books is that you need to treat yourself as a stock, right? And every day you're either adding value or taking away value from your stock. And the reason that shifted the way I treat life from this point on is now I'm no longer just like coasting through life. I'm no longer willing to accept life, the same year of life over and over. I run my life like I run a business. I'm constantly seeking growth. I'm constantly seeing how can I invest back into me? How can I invest back into these things? What's the benefit of shifting your mindset from your perspective? What's the benefit of shifting your mindset? Because there's a lot of people who listen to my podcast who are just fine being moms, just fine being dads, sons, daughters, and they aren't necessarily going to go crush it out on a business. They might, but my suggestion, and this is my belief, that they should be applying these same core principles and values, even if that's all they're going to do is just build an awesome life. Build an awesome life. So speak to that for a second.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love it. I came to this own theory conclusion that people are living life to plateau. And what I mean by that is I think people just want to get to that spot in life where they can go, I made it. Here's the problem. That spot's not a thing. There's never a point in your life that you can get to where you can just go, I made it. Because what that's called is your comfort zone or complacency, whatever. And when you get to that spot, or you feel like you get to that spot and you stop growth, or you stop momentum, you stop moving forward, what's actually happening is you're going backwards. So to put that into perspective, let's go running a business. If I don't get on podcasts, get on stages, do reach outs, have conversations, meet new people every day, and I'm not talking about Monday through Friday employee mindset. I'm talking 7 days a week. I am talking, engaging, reaching out. I'm not the 24/7 hustle guy. That's not me. I'm a dude, by 8 o'clock, work's done. I'm getting my beauty sleep at 10, right? And probably with a cocktail in my hand, but 7 days a week, there's going to be some sort of activity out there reaching out, because if I turn off that business development, my employees don't get paid, right? So it's the same thing for the mental game. If you're not every day cashing those mental checks of investing in yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people, getting in bigger conversations, thinking bigger, then your family doesn't get paid. Your friends, your close loved ones don't get paid, because all they get is the Eeyore version of you versus this lit version of you that should be lighting the world on fire. And I'm not telling you to be an entrepreneur. I think most people shouldn't try this. If I were completely honest, but I'm telling you, if you're going to be a mom, imagine if you're investing in yourself, how much more awesome of a mom you can be by investing in your kids. If you're going to be an employee for the rest of your life, cool. I have nothing against that. But imagine if you invest in yourself, how much better of an employee you can get. I don't think we were put here to live a mundane life. I think we were put here to go through life lighting other people up by stepping into how awesome we are. And if we look at ourselves as that flame that lights up everybody else's flames, dude, make some bonfires and really go big with it. It goes back to, how are you moving forward? And how are you expanding your knowledge? There's a couple of careers I had where I wasn't reading any new books. I wasn't going to any conferences. I wasn't getting on any stages or anything. And those those years, I can go back and look at my sales numbers from those years, and it's flatlined. I made good money, right? But it was a flatline life. And those years, we didn't really take any vacations. We didn't really do anything. It was just mundane. I mean, I might as well dress in all gray and just show up through life, because that's all I am to do. So don't show people the Eeyore side of your life, man. Light up.
Yeah, totally. I think that just gave me an awesome idea for recognition in my company. So I love that idea, right? But another thing that everything that he just said is pretty much how I live my life. So this is why I get great people on the podcast, partially because I already believe a lot of this stuff, but it sounds better coming from somebody else. So that's all.
That's how we learn a lot of things.
Sure. But the other part is, it's good reminders. I mean, there's some things that I've written down here that I've thought about, man, I need to do this, but I just haven't done it. And so when we meet and we talk about these things, then I'm able to remind, oh yeah, now I have mental space to take care of that. I want to take care of that. Speak to this as well, because you mentioned your kind of epiphany you could get into podcasting world was you're on this podcast with a guy who's just not successful at it, not great at it, and you totally crush it. Like, yep. you feel, okay, I can totally do this. Well, my question for you would be, and maybe talks directly to the audience here, but why is it important to just identify something you're just maybe 10% better at? You're not like the best podcaster yet, but you know that you can do better than somebody who's serving you already. If you ever feel like, man, I could do better, I could give better service than that person just gave me, then you have the ability to add value somewhere. Why is that important? And why is it important to recognize those small things?
Yeah, no, I love that. And here's the interesting thing. I love the pissed off life. And what I mean by that is when, one of my clients came to me one point and she's like, I'm going to be on big stages. I'm going to do these things. I'm like, cool, let's go for it. Let's get you on big stage. Let's do the work. And one day she called me up and she's almost in tears, just livid. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And she goes, I just left a conference and this speaker, who I know got paid $20,000 to be on the stage, was one of the worst speakers I've ever seen in my life. And only thing I could think of the entire time is that should be me. And she's like, I was in this crowd, pissed the entire time. And I said, good, let's use that. So I literally made her take out the picture of that gal that was on stage, not her, and put it on her freaking backside of her wall. It's right behind her monitor. And I'm like, every day, that's your bait. That's what you're going after. And she hasn't got a $20,000 speech, but she got an $11,000 speech not too long ago, which is a massive speech.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. But the trick is emotion charges everything. Action takes care of it, but it usually takes emotion to charge it. We have thoughts all day long, but until that thought becomes an emotion behind it, we won't typically do anything through it. It's why I like the pissed off motion, because you can really feel it. You don't always feel when you're going into a depressed side of things. You don't always feel when you're getting down, but when you're getting pissed off, man, you're all there. And so what I tell people most times is, what do you see in your life that somebody else is doing, to your point, like you said, that's literally, you go, God, why is that person doing it and not me? Because if you find that thing, there's fuel there. And if you go back to the whole idea that we're a flame, we're going to light up other people, man, you find that pissed off fire, that pissed off fuel, and you're going to be amazed at how much it lights you up. So, for instance, with my podcast, I went and looked at a lot of shows, and I went and looked at some of the most successful shows in the world, and I missed one. And you'll understand when I say I missed one when I was looking at shows. And I found out what they're doing. And what I realized is most of the big shows had been in the game for a while, right? They had a ton of episodes out there. And I'm like, well, man, if they're going to have a ton of episodes, I got to catch up. So I launched my podcast as a daily podcast. And I was doing 9 interviews every Friday. I would start at 8 o'clock in the morning, no lunch breaks, barely a bathroom break, and would do 9 interviews to keep the hopper. I was so scared that I wouldn't have enough, content to do a daily show. And we just started putting out content. It was around the 30th episode that I put out that somebody says, "Oh, your show is just like John Lee Dumas." And I said, "Who the heck is that?" And I actually I talked to John a couple of times, and I said, "John, this is my story." He goes, "Well, you say you did your due diligence, but you obviously did not do your due diligence if you had no idea who the heck I was."
He's got like, what, 2,500 now?
Yeah, at this point,
and he switched up his podcast.
Yeah, he has recently. Now it's a pay-to-play type model. But, but it was that thing. And part of what allowed my show to find that early on success was the massive amount of content we were putting out there. And then, we put a lot of moving parts with it, but we learned how to energize the guests to get them to do what we needed them to do to share content and put everything out there. And so we found a lot of cool things to do. And, I became a walking billboard. I literally would go everywhere and wear people out about my podcast, tell them it's on this conversation. I found ways to sneak in. And the whole time, all I can think was, my show is not going to be worse than that guy's. I guarantee my show will never be that bad. Mm-hmm. And so I just kept fighting to make sure it would not get that bad. And I was still being as tenacious as getting on other shows and everything. So it really just came to, once you get that pissed off, fuel in you, use it, because it will keep pushing you forward. You can't stay there, right? You can't stay there forever, but it's damn sure. It's like watching the space shuttle. That pissed off fuel gets you off the platform and halfway up, right? Now turn off the pissed off and start giving back, and that'll be the second, boost to get you up there.
Yeah, totally agree. In fact, for me in my profession, that's really like exactly why. Well, that's one big reason why I'm in the profession I am, and why I'm trying to fulfill the niche that I'm trying to fulfill. Because there's a lot of people who talk about money and talk about the energy. Like if you have a Bob Proctor, so that's the energy side. Then you have Dave Ramsey, Tony Robbins, Susie Orman. You have all these people who talk about conceptual money things, and then you have the other half of the room that the financial advisory field is they're just financial advisors. Like that, they ask you 4 questions, they'll manage your money, but they don't understand the other realm of how the psychological brain works with money. And so bringing the understanding with the licenses can really create a powerful combination to actually enable people not just to get the education conceptually, but then to actually put those strategies that you're helping them identify into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I love that, because it really is. You identify something. It doesn't matter how big that name is. If you think, hey, that person is doing it wrong and I can do it better, more people will like what I'm doing, I'm going to have more success. then go chase down the biggest cat in the room. Like there's no reason not to. Just go chase them. Even if you got half of that guy's success or that woman's success, that's still going to be way better than where you're at doing your other thing.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is that's how I did my sales career, and I didn't even totally recognize it going through my years, is every time I went to a new company, and I was only in 3 or 4 companies, but I would go up to the number one guy and say, okay, or number one gal in one case, and said, how'd you get here? What'd you do? And then I just did everything they did. I just did it more, except for one guy that I could never outsell. He's still a jerk in my book, but because he's this damn good sales guy. But when you got that massive vision of something you want to accomplish, and ask me about goal setting, because I think goal setting is an absolute joke and doesn't work. But when you got that massive vision and you can move forward, there's very little that can stop you as long as you keep your mindset and emotions in check. Right? As long as you can keep those in check, and you can run and gun and literally light this world on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think, like, if there was like 2 or 3 things you would say are the biggest kind of mountains that people need to remove to get out of their own way? Like, what are the 2 biggest things that you see over and over and over and over that are keeping people in their own way that they just need to get rid of to really move a lot faster?
Yeah, it's really easy. First one, fail better. That's it. Fail better. And what people don't understand is, people have talked about failure's not a thing, blah, blah, blah. You got to fail to win and all that crap you get thrown around there. Yeah, it's true, right? It's true. But you got to start planning to fail. And what I mean by that is you got to do things like, we're doing our first conference, you and I were talking about beforehand, coming up. And this conference scares the crap out of me because I've never done anything this massive. 3 days, people coming in from all over the world, multiple speakers. I mean, it just scares the crap out of me to do this thing. But I looked at my team and I said, if we don't do the things that would freak us out, then we're not going to scale the business to the level we're trying to take it. And, so they're all along for the ride. And I said, okay, how do we go on this thing to break? What are we going to break? And so that became our constant motto has been for the 2 years in my company is, what are we going to break today? How do we break it? And how do we go into it knowing it's going to fail? You don't do anything new without it failing, right? But knowing it's going to fail and just be more prepared for when it does and be okay when it happens. So it's the whole mindset first of literally wrapping your head around, how can I fail better at this? And that works for whatever you're doing in your life. If you're a mom, how can I fail better at teaching my kids something? How can I fail better at trying something new for dinner? If I'm a business guy, sales guy, how can I fail better on a sales call? How can I try something new? And that's when you really start to get growth, because it's never about going through the fear and accomplish it. It's about who you become on the way to conquering that fear. So fail better. The second thing, and I got to clean this up because the way I say it on stage is a lot more fun, is quit giving a damn what anybody thinks about you. Because everybody is like walking around with a whiteboard on their chest, handing out freaking magic, markers to everybody going, hey, would you please write my worth on my chest here? And it's really, really, really interesting that how much people believe that other people are thinking about them, when in truth, the whole world's selfish and nobody's thinking about the other person ever. And, so what people do is, I won't become an entrepreneur because what will my family say? I won't, go try and get on stages because somebody might laugh at me. I won't have a tough sales conversation or do reach outs because they won't like me. I won't be a financial advisor because there's 50,000 and nobody likes them, and so they're putting all these things out there and waiting for the world to tell them what they're worth. Well, the problem is everybody's waiting for the world to tell them what they're worth. If the quicker you understand that nobody is thinking about you. And it's not that nobody cares about you. It's just we're all selfish and self-centered. That the quicker you wrap your head around there and the more you start failing on purpose and failing better, dude, it's a game changer, because now you can do all that crap you read in the books where they talk about failing to succeed. that's what they're talking about. And that's what I think, back to the books make sense. That's what they're talking about is you're going into that failure. And it's so much easier when not worried about rejection and everything else because you can do anything. You can do lives, you can do podcast interviews, you can get on stages, you can go talk to anybody in a room. Because most times when you meet somebody and they make a response, it's their response. It has nothing to do with who you are. So those are my two biggest things. If I could add a third one on there, have a massive vision. Have something that just gets you out of bed every damn day. And I don't believe that you got to have a why, because I think nobody knows what their why. They don't know why they want to do something. They have theories of why they'd want to do something. But I will tell you, if you have a massive vision, like where you want to get to, like that freedom number, that place you want to get to, man, it's so much easier to get out of bed every morning going, man, I get another shot to go straight at that thing.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So when you're, I want to shift in because this is, I know, a big concern of some people. I think we've talked about just barely. We kind of talked about naysayers. Just stop caring and realize you don't need to care. But one of the things that I wonder, and you kind of alluded to it, and feel free to not answer this or choose to answer this as specific as you want.
Sure.
I guess is a better way. But one reason people will not get into entrepreneurship is financial backing. They just don't understand money enough. They don't understand what creates money. They don't understand maybe how much money it would actually take, how to finance a transition. What did you do? Because obviously you left a career, you just walked away from something. You had mentioned that you were kind of down to the ropes of like almost failing. Like what did you do in between that time? And how did you understand money to be able to not have that?
No, this is a cool question. Yeah, it's a cool question. Here's the thing. You don't need money to start a business. You don't have to get financial backing, anything to start. The caveat, if you're going to start a franchise, you better have money because, of course, you got to buy the franchise. If you're going to buy a retail store, start a retail store or something like that, you're going to have money. But in this day and age, in this awesome gig economy that we work and live in, you can start anything. I've got a friend named Bonnie, and I just love telling Bonnie. Bonnie owns 4 different retail locations right now doing custom shabby chic furniture. Bonnie started that business at her kitchen table making kids' clothes. And she had just had her firstborn. She was laid off from the oil companies. We were in the oil downturn. And her kids needed more clothes. And they literally did not have the money to buy clothes. So she started making them out of her husband's old shirts and stuff and sew and modify them. And she posted them to Facebook. And people were like, oh, I'd like some of those. And so she started making clothes for other people. Well, one day she decided, that the room, she took some money that she made and she decided to paint the dresser in her daughter's room. And she just happened to put the picture of the dresser up on Facebook. And somebody said, oh, I'll buy that for like $600. And she's like, I bought it for $20 at a garage sale, and I just painted it so it looked nicer in her room. But if somebody wants $600, I'll sell it and go find another one. So she did. And then somebody else asked, hey, do you have any more of those dressers? And the next thing you know, they converted their entire garage into a furniture store, and they were refinishing furniture. And that led to, they outgrew the garage. She bought her first store, then she bought her second store, then she bought her third store, and they're now at 4 stores. And now they go into houses. Not only do they sell as refurbished furniture, they go in and redo and refinish cabinets inside of houses, and she's running crews doing these cabinets. She had no capital whatsoever. She had no money invested, and she damn sure they were broke. Doing it. All she did is just started doing something out of necessity and kept doing it and doing it more and doing it better. And she evolved into a really awesome business owner. So part of the trick is get in the game, right? The quicker you get in the game, the quicker you start learning things. The second half of that is at some point in getting in that game, you're going to have to switch from employee to business owner. Because one of the transitions I made is I was handling all the finances of my business. Well, my personal finances sucked. So my business finances mimicked my personal finances because I was running them the same way. Everything I did in my personal life, I was trying to do in my business life. That's how you manage money. Well, get out of it. Eventually you'll get to a point where you bring somebody else in that's their specialty, that's their niche. You never give up your numbers completely, right? I can tell you every day exactly the amount of revenue that comes in my business and what it takes to get there, right? That's what you do as a business owner. But you've got to bring other people in that geek out on that stuff that you suck at and let them do their thing.
Yeah. Again, this is everything. If you ever read the book, I'm sure you've read it, but the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I mean, my
40-year-old move, that was my entrepreneur hiccup, which comes from that book.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just a perfect that book really, I think, adequately describes the different stages of entrepreneurship and how to make transitions and how to clearly identify what roles are whose and how to separate those and hire specifically for roles. I mean, it's just that book is phenomenal if you are wanting to go from even a self-employed person to a business owner. They're two separate people, and making that distinction. Yeah. So I'm curious if somebody listening to this show wanted to get a hold of you, wanted to either, I don't know if you have free content. Obviously, you have two podcasts.
I got all kinds of fun stuff for you.
How would they get a hold of you, or maybe attend your event happening down in Texas? How would that happen?
So I'm pulling up a cheat sheet that I have. Bear with me 2 seconds. So if they will send the word, do podcast for this one. So if they'll send the word podcast in a text message to 817-318-6030, I'll send them back a 5-page workbook. And it's a pretty detailed workbook on how to get work-life balance. And the secondary line under the title of that book is how do I spend my non-working hours with my family and not working on the business? Because it was one of the toughest things I had to learn how to do, because I was like, if I don't run this business, I'm out of business. So literally send the word podcast to 817-318-6030 and we'll send that over to you. Another fun way is if you guys are on Facebook at all, and you've ever thought about running a business, you're in a business, you're trying to level up and figure it out, go up to the Facebook search bar, type in the word Success Champions, click on groups, and come hang out. We have 800 small business owners in there. The group's got 90% engagement. We do a ton of things in there. Every Friday at 4:00 Central Time, I go live with a glass of Captain Morgan and talk business. So it's all this kind of stuff. We have a lot of fun. We had a ton of people watching the show. So come hang out with us. It's a really, really, really good time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we'll definitely, and we'll have links to various things in the show notes here for you. So this is our last two sections here. They're going to go pretty fast. The second to last one is called Legacy on Rapid Fire, kind of like a game show. Sure. 1 word to 1 sentence answers to these 5 questions. You ready to go?
Good.
Perfect. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy?
Bigger thinking.
Awesome. And what do you think the hardest thing that you've ever accomplished has been?
Running this business.
And what do you think your greatest success to this point in your life is?
Speaking in Ireland.
Speaking in Ireland. What city did you speak in, by the way?
It's actually 9 different cities.
Oh, you traveled the world.
We did a whole tour with the podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, so, I spent 6 months in Ireland.
I loved every city but Dublin.
Right?
Because I mean, if you've been to any big city, you've been to Dublin.
Yeah, I agree.
We enjoyed the countryside.
Cool. So what would you say one secret habit, mindset, or behavior is that contributes most to your success?
Having a routine to start your day every morning.
Nice. And what are a few books that you'd recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Probably Jen Sincero, You're a Bad Beep at Making Money. Phenomenal book. I love that. Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Phenomenal read. Millionaire Next Door is another one that's all in the financial realms. Business book, we'll go to E-Myth. Think and Grow Rich. That was one of the first books I was ever introduced to. And if you're wanting to run a business, a really good one is your High Vibe business workbook.
Amen. All of them I've read, and they are all fantastic. In fact, there's quite a few of them I've actually done book reviews on this show and over the last year. So if you want to go see my thoughts on those, go find it there, but also go get the book. It's phenomenal. Okay, this is my final question, favorite question the whole purpose of this episode. We're going to find out how in alignment you are with your life and your business. So we're going to pretend that you're dead. You died. Okay. And you have the opportunity now. I know you don't have any kids, so this is going to be interesting, but we're just going to pretend you do have kids for the feeling of the question. Okay. But you are able to come back and see your great, 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 great grandchildren. So 6 generations from now, 200 years from now, they're sitting around a table discussing your life, your legacy, what you contributed. What do you want them to be saying about you 200 years from now?
He carved a path. He took others with him, and he came back to teach to the same ways and things he accomplished. I mean, to me, the hero's journey is my story. It's 100% that it took me. I tell everybody, I'm a late bloomer to get here, but now my biggest passion is teaching other people to do what I've done, and I guarantee that generations from now, that's what we're going to say is he literally came back and taught us all how to get there.
That's incredible. I love it. And I agree. If you've listened to this podcast and you know that that's his mission and his passion, he didn't have to say it, but I'm glad he did. And yeah, we're excited. Thank you so much for all of that. And we'll have those links for you guys down in the show notes here so you can get connected with Donnie. And yeah,
let me do one thing for you though, just because I love doing this.
Yeah,
guys, if you're listening to this show, do me an honest favor. Go leave this guy a review. I am telling you, reviews are the lifebloods of podcasts. So if you get any value out of this whatsoever, go leave him an honest review. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review. Just leave him an honest review out there and tell him, because that's like literally coming up and giving him a hug, and telling him you're doing an awesome job, and it can do it wherever you listen to podcasts. If you really want to do a favor for him, go tell somebody else to listen to the show. Go tell somebody else to tune in, because when you do that, you're helping to introduce other people to a great message, a great thought process, and it really allows him to touch and impact more lives. So show him some love, guys. It will mean the world to him.
True that. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate that. And we'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.